And welcome in the Caddo Registrar Voters Office here on Marshall Street, downtown Shreveport. Tom Pace, the talk of the town, with another 2016 election update, and this time talking about the March 5th election coming up. Ernie Robertson, the Caddo Parish Registrar of Voters, really? It's coming up March 5th?
Well, we got another one, March the 5th, and this one is really kind of complicated and confusing, so we want to go over it and make sure everybody understands that basically we're going to run 4 different elections on one election date, and one of them is a closed primary instead of an open primary.
See, 4 elections one day, that's kind of difficult, but one of them is for a closed primary?
Right. The presidential preference primary is not an open primary like we normally run in Louisiana. It is a closed primary, and by choice of the Louisiana Democrats and the Louisiana Republican Party. It has nothing to do with the Secretary of State, the Registrar of Voters, or the Clerk of Court. This is a closed primary. So only Democrats will vote on the Democratic candidates, and we are going to have a list of those. Tom, you can see it right there. And only Republicans will vote on the Republican candidates. So if you're a Democrat, you can only vote on the Democratic candidates, and the Republicans can only vote on the Republican candidates. So that leaves a segment of our voters, about 25%, who will not vote in this parish-wide election.
Wait a minute. Wait. They won't vote, but what if they are no party or independents or things? What if they want to vote, but they're not registered?
Well, if you're not a registered Democrat or you're not a registered Republican, you can't vote in the presidential preference primary. You will get to vote in November for the presidential election. But in this particular election, this is a closed primary just for the members of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. And if you're an other party, like Green, Reform, or Libertarian, or if you registered and you put down independent, then you wind up being with the other parties, then you cannot vote in the presidential preference primary. But that's where the twist comes in. We are running 3 other elections at the same time. They're not all parish-wide. You might be eligible to vote in one of those because all 3 of those are open primary elections, but they're all by district.
All right, and I understand that. Here's the question. What if I would like to register as a Democrat or a Republican? Can I do that prior to this?
You can up until February the 3rd. So if you're seeing this video before February the 3rd, still have the opportunity to change your party if you so desire, and then you can always change your party. I want to say that time you can change your party back if you want to. It doesn't really matter in Louisiana, because while you're expressing your party preference, we are an open primary state. Other states call us the Cajun primary, and it is different than other states that use open primaries. But in the Cajun primary, you would be able to vote in the presidential election. It'll be wide open. You can vote for whoever you want to. It doesn't matter what your party is or what the candidate's party is. But in this particular election, March the 5th, it is a closed primary for the Democrats and Republicans. So on the presidential preference primary, on the March 5th ballot, it's closed primary. You got to be a member of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party to vote in the presidential preference primary. But then we get to the other 3 elections, and that's where we're going to start talking about them.
Yeah, because I understand there are delegates, there are parish representatives. Tell me about that.
Well, there are going to be some party committee elections. We have a parish committee for both parties, as well as a state committee or state central committee for both parties. Now, there are seats on that will be voted on. Not all of the seats were challenged. So again, it's going to depend. You're going to have to be a Democrat or Republican to vote in that, and there may not be a challenged election in your particular area. I know there are a couple of that use Senate districts, and a couple of those are challenged, and there are some others that are challenged. And we will have that information at caddovoter.org. You'll be able to go on there, and you can look up your particular precinct, and then you can look and see if something's challenged in your particular area. But now that information is not on there right now as we're taping this in early January, but it will be on there after the books close February the 3rd. That field will be populated, as they say, and you'll be able to go on what's on my ballot and take a look at it, and you'll be able to see what's going to be on your particular ballot. But again, that is a party election, and that's only going to be part of the Democrats and Republicans who get to vote for that.
Ernie, voting has always taken unique turns, and this location many times has been part of history, has it not?
Well, it has been. This is the Ward Building, and it was actually constructed in 1915. And so when we look at it and we take a look at it, we also know that there were some other buildings in this area that are no longer here. And on the video, we're going to show you some of those, and you actually get to see a shot of some of the buildings that were here. The REO truck dealership used to be down the street, and of course across the street prior to the Rico Brewster building being there, the Caddo Club was there. It burned in 1912, and so we just wanted to kind of show you some of the historic buildings that used to be around our office here in what is now the Caddo Commission building. This is still the structure that started out as the Ward building.
And then there was the historic, and still is, the Strand Theater.
Strand Theater, of course, around the corner off of Louisiana at Crockett. It was built in the 20s, and it is actually a beautiful building that was restored in the early 1980s. And, you know, really, Tom, whenever you look at that building and you get a chance to go into there, it's one of the jewels of Shreveport that has been saved in downtown Shreveport, and a lot of history goes with that as far as the performers that have been there.
And not only that, but there is an underground part of the Strand. It was a civil defense underground shelter.
It was, and there was kind of like a tunnel down in there, and you could I understand you could go from one place to the other in downtown Shreveport using some of the tunnels. And so most of that, of course, has been now cemented over and bricked over. But back in the 60s and 50s and 60s, whenever there was the Cuban Missile Crisis and all, that's where some of the foodstuffs were actually stored.
All right. Now, and also, what about our mayor form of government? This is relatively new. Didn't we used to have a different form?
Well, we did. We had the old commissioner style of government where each commissioner, we had a mayor, but we also had commissioners, and one handled water, and another one handled finance, and another one was the public safety director, another one was streets and drainage. And we changed from that, and that was in 1978, and that's when we went to city council, and we actually drew city council districts. And so we were able to find, and we have it here in our office, it'll be part of our display for Voter Week on down in May. And we actually have a project that was done by a local student talking about the change of government. And we're always trying to find things that were kind of historic to keep in our office so the public can see them. And we also have here in the office, we have the old voting cans. They were last used in the early 60s. In an election in Caddo, even though we had machines at that time, this was a very select type, small election. So they used the old voting cans, and when we found the cans, they were stored in a room in the courthouse, and they were brought out. There were some of the unused ballots that had been stuffed down in them, and so we were able to pull those out and save those. And, you know, Tom, really trying to be a repository for some of the history in the courthouse and of elections in Caddo.
All right. Now, Ernie, so let's get back here. We know voting's coming up on March 5th, but will there be early voting?
There will be early voting, and it's going to be coming up starting February 20th, which of course is a Saturday, and running through the following Saturday, February 27th, and we're closed on the intervening Sunday. That's February 21st. Usual times, 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. each day, and it's open to any registered voter in Caddo Parish. But again, we go back to the fact that only Democrats and Republicans will vote on the preference primary. However, if you live in one of the other three districts, and that's a heck of a segue, isn't it? If you live in one of the other three districts, you will be able to vote in those elections regardless of your party.
And not to forget, on top of everything else, we have a new Court of Appeal judge to be elected, I guess, for the remaining term.
That's correct. Due to the election of James Stewart as our district attorney, he stepped down from the Court of Appeal. So we will have a special election for the remainder of his term. And that election is only held in 48 precincts of the 151 in Caddo Parish. And you could go to our website at caddovoter.org and you can look up the precinct list, and I'll give you one caveat on there. What we call the ring precincts on the edge of the district, some of those are split. They're not wholly within the district because they're actually based on old precinct lines. So there will be some question there, and again, that's where you need to be looking at caddovoter.org. Check on what's on my ballot, say after February 3rd or so, and you'll be able to find out if your precinct not only is in that, but whether or not you're in the portion that actually votes on the Court of Appeals election. And that is an open primary election. Anybody in those precincts, if you're in the Court of Appeal district, can vote. And it's basically the old central part of Shreveport.
Finally, I understand one more item to vote for, but not for, so to speak, Caddo, or maybe it is. It's a mayor in Greenwood.
We do. We actually have two. We've got Mayor of Greenwood, and this is actually the time for their town elections. That's the only portion that was challenged. The aldermen were not challenged. So there are two people running for mayor. So if you live and you're registered within Greenwood, then you can vote on the mayor of Greenwood. And again, you have until February 3rd to change your registration. If you moved out to Greenwood and you haven't changed your registration, you need to change it. You have to be registered there. And then, Tom, we've got one more thing to vote on.
Oh, what is that?
That is District 8, which is a fire district. And this is one of those kind of invisible line districts. It's up in the north end of the parish, and it's literally probably some type of section or range line, and would be section or range line that goes across, bisects the north end of the parish. And so I would just say portions beginning around Vivian going north to the Arkansas line, to the Texas line, and to the Red River will be eligible to vote on this. And most of the people in that district tend to know they're in it because they're serviced by Fire District 8. They have two propositions on the ballot. They'll be on there. That's open primary. Town of Greenwood's open primary. Court of Appeal is open primary. So if you live in one of those three districts, you can vote in. But they're all separate districts. In other words, if you're in the court,
vote for all of them.
You won't, because there's Court of Appeal is totally different than the town of Greenwood, which is totally different than Fire District 8. And so it's kind of a different type of election.
Now, if you've been watching this, you understand the complexities of a ballot. So here's the deal. caddovoter.org, caddovoter.org. That is your one-stop shop for every question that you would have. And also, it's so simple because it's 24/7. You can do it from the convenience of your home. And Ernie, if you're not registered, you can actually do it online.
You can do it. You can register online. You'll need your driver's license, a Louisiana special ID, because they're going to ask you for your audit code that is right beside your picture on your ID, and you will enter that along with all the other information. And if it goes through, the way to tell it is it doesn't prompt you to print it off and mail it in. Now, if it prompts you to print it off and mail in your application to the registrar, what that means is it did not accept it. Something wasn't there. And sometimes that's because there may be a name difference, or a difference in your Social Security number, you didn't get it right, or a difference in your birth date or something like that. And there's some interface in there between DMV and the Social Security Administration, and that's to help prevent fraud. And so you can go online, you can come into our office, you can call our office at 226 226-6891, 226-6891, and we'll be glad to help you over the phone to see what the problem was, or we can mail you an application if we have time, or you can go by one of the libraries. And Tom, we're out doing voter registration at the libraries during January, and we're going to make all the libraries in Caddo Parish, some of them a couple of times. And so I encourage you, again, go to caddovoter.org or call us at 226-6891. We can tell you where we'll be that particular week because it changes by the week, and we're out like 3 days a week.
So right now, as they're watching this, the question is, they can actually go to a Caddo Parish library and register?
Some of them, we're there certain times during the week, and so just call and check our schedule. And we'll have one of our staff members there, and you can go in if you want to register with someone, you feel more comfortable doing it that way. Take your ID with you, showing a Caddo address or something proving that you live in Caddo, and they can register you to vote in person at one of the libraries. And if you miss them, well, then give us a call, 226-6891. There's a real good chance we'll be back at most of the libraries again.
Well, there you have it. This update from the Caddo Registrar of Voters Office, what's happening in 2016, the March 5th elections, and there's a bunch of them. And the simplest answer to this, according to Ernie Robertson and all those that are working here in the office, caddovoter.org, caddovoter.org, and just remember, it's your right to vote. Use it wisely and register. I'm Tom Pace with this Election 2016 update.